Okay, Viva question, why did Japan attack Pearl Harbor? Most Americans know about the Day of Infamy, or Pearl Harbor, but are unaware of the events that led up to it. Japan was trying to set up an empire, but its violence pushed America to intervene, forcing the empire to take action against the United States. First off, Japan had begun to create a massive empire that spread across most of Asia. Secondly, the Japanese empire grew increasingly more brutal and cruel towards the Chinese and to the other countries they were occupying. And lastly, Japan believed they needed to push the United States Navy out of the Pacific. So, argument one. In the 19th century, both America and Japan tried to redefine themselves as a great power, and this quest put our two nations on a collision course, inevitably on a collision course. After 1868, the new leaders of the Meiji Japan worked hard to improve their country's status in the world. Some of the ways Japan tried to grow was by taking over the northern island of Hokkaido and the Ryukyu Islands, which were the northern islands of Japan, which were inhabited by a Asian-related heritage. They did this to expand their home country of Japan, and it industrialized their economy, and it also built up their empire. So they were trying to expand because since Japan is a island, it is a little more segregated than all the other countries that are close to each other and are easy to trade with and to communicate with. So Japan was trying to grow its empire by expanding because they were away from everyone. They're an island, so they're away from China and far away from America. They have to cross the whole Pacific, which they tried. By 1894, the Japanese Army and Navy had met their goal of purchasing and manufacturing high-quality European-style weapons. Soon after, Japan sent troops to attack both Korea's and the Queen troops, and the Queen are the Chinese troops that are in Korea. They're more of a not like government regulated, but more of a hit squad or a little army by themselves that they are, and the Queen are paying these troops. The Japanese easily won the battle with the new military tools because they are getting the newest advancements from Europe. And finally, in 1904, the Russo-Japanese War took place, and under Admiral Togo, the Japanese ships intercepted and destroyed the Russian battle fleet, which had streamed all the way around Africa to reach the Pacific. So, this was when Russia went all the way under Africa because they could not go through Europe and on top of Africa because of disagreements between Europe. So they had to go all the way under, and Admiral Togo easily defeated the Russians. My second point is, as the Japanese Empire grew, the Japanese became increasingly brutal and cruel, leading America to distance themselves. In late 1937, over a period of 6 weeks, Imperial Japanese Army forces brutally murdered hundreds of thousands of people, including both soldiers and civilians, in the Chinese city of Monching. Tilman Durden says the killing of civilians was widespread. Foreigners who traveled widely through the city Wednesday found civilians dead in every street. So the Japanese took over this city in China, and they were very brutal. They would just barge into houses and kill families that were just minding their own business, not a part of the war between China and Japan. And sometimes they would spare one or two children in the houses to make it even more cruel. So in response to this, America put tariffs against Japan. And so we kind of stopped trade with them, with especially manufactured goods like weapons and military vehicles, and also oil, which is a big point because the natural resources on Japan's land are very slim because it's, one, a small island, and two, there's not much metal or oil. It's really more just forests and places like that. Roosevelt's tariffs meant that America was more likely to be attacked by Japan because at the time, because of California, we were a big source of oil, or giving out oil to the rest of the world, and since Japan had very little oil left, we're kind of backing them into a corner, and they only have really one option. My third point is Japan believed that they needed to force the U.S. Navy out of the Pacific. Once America decided to respond to Japan's aggression, the empire quickly realized that its very existence hung in the balance, because they had no oil or natural resources, so they were losing everything. So Japan hatched a pair of sneak attacks on America to drive America out of the Pacific to restore their oil supply. The situation worsened as Japan's increasing conflict pushed it towards an alliance with the Axis powers. So Japan was getting with Germany, and this was right before World War II. So Japan was making alliances with Hitler and Germany, and was joining them to fight America and the rest of the world, like Russia, Korea, and China, and America, which were their four main countries they wanted to fight and take over. Frank Beatty Jr. says, prior to December 7th, it was evident even to me that we were pushing Japan into a corner. Without access to oil, the Japanese only had one option, which was to bomb the U.S. and make us give them oil, leading to the attack on Pearl Harbor. So those are my three reasons on why Japan attacked Pearl Harbor and how we almost forced them to do so.
Booyah, baby. That's the last one. That's a wrap. A little Easter egg for people who watched all the 8 minutes.